All right, and we are live. What's up, everyone? Thank you for joining us here today. I have the great honor and privilege of hosting a good buddy of mine. Some of you may know him as Apollo Z Hack, and back in the day, but nowadays he's just
the has been Apollo Z Hack.
Yeah, nowadays he just goes by Matt.
Yes, it's much less colorful and a lot more boring. Yo, what's up, everybody?
Yeah, so why don't you give people a little bit of background on that for people that aren't familiar with the work from back in the day, because that's how I discovered you, was through the Apollo Z Hacks videos. And surprisingly enough, it was actually I might have not even found them on YouTube. I think I found them on Blip.
Oh, jeez, dude, that takes me back, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Like the Apollo thing hasn't really been a thing for almost like a decade, if not more. But I was on Channel Awesome for like a blink of an eye, doing Apollo Z Hack, a Reviewerverse saga, and then around like maybe 2012 or so, that's when we started doing Monstrosities, which is just a Tokusatsu whatever show. We review movies, toys, we do editorials, we did do documentary series for a little while. I mean, chances are, you name it, we've done it at least once. And I typically reside over in the Godzilla fandom, not so much the Henshin Hero part of things, but I have been known to dip my toes in there every once in a while, stir some things up.
Yeah.
But it's, yeah, I mean, I know it's not like a super exciting, like, come check my stuff out, but it's fun, man. It's fun, I don't want to be like, oh yeah, I did this and I did that, but it's a living, or a hobby, I should say, I guess.
Hey, but it's all in fun. So shout out to Dream Bomb, which is Marco Satsu.
Oh shit! Those guys are awesome.
How you doing? What's up, Dave Marks? How you doing? Donnie Pearson, how you doing? We got some more people joining the chat here. So, yeah, well, I guess the point to start from would be, after, I guess, the whole starting the Monstrosities thing. Oh, we got Godzilla artists in the chat.
Oh, snap. You know who that is, right? That's Ben Chaffins.
Oh, nice. What is up, Ben? How you doing?
My boy Jason St. Germain's in here, too.
Nice. Appreciate you guys joining the chat to hang out with us for a little bit here. But, yeah, bro, yeah, I've seen the stuff that's happened with your channel. And, so some of the things have been a little bit spicy, and I'm not talking about the most recent stuff, but even before with the for those of you that don't know, Matt does a lot of coverage more or less on the kaiju side, although he does know about the Henshin Hero stuff. But he actually put out some really cool interviews that he did with Yoko Higuchi, who actually worked on Godzilla, on Shin Godzilla. And unfortunately, due to reasons, those interviews are no longer available, but they were absolutely fantastic and really gave you an insight into the going-ons of what it's like to work on a Toho production, more or less. So speaking of that whole situation, man, has anything really come up of that since then, or it just died?
It was just a really weird situation, and it's a situation that's not uncommon. A lot of the cats here, especially like Ben, Ben's the reason why I was able to interview Yoko specifically for that series. Yoko was a production assistant on Shin, and we were kind of like doing a video series telling his story of his experiences, and then also coupling that with like interviews with Ben, who Ben has actually gone off and like has translated texts like the Art of Shin Godzilla book. Sorry, I'm like looking off to the side here because the book is like right over there. But this big thick thing of just behind the scenes info from pre-production all the way to post-production, and basically the whole situation was just kind of a lesson in Japanese entertainment politics, because we weren't really breaking any laws, but certain people, it wasn't Ano, it wasn't Higuchi, the two directors, but it was the director of special effects, did not like the fact that we were doing these videos and kind of made some, I don't want to say threats, but word got through the grapevine that he wasn't all too happy with it. So I really wanted to do an emphasis on that for a long time because like there's a lot of good content out there, a lot of good people to share their stories, you know, especially about stuff like that, especially with Shin Godzilla, man. That movie, despite whatever you may think about it, it did a hell of a lot on the Japanese side of things. I mean, there was a whole Godzilla resurgence, no pun intended, because that's the international title for Shin Godzilla. Yeah. There was a whole Godzilla resurgence thanks to that movie. After it came out, you know, that's when Toho started putting up the Godzilla store in Tokyo, and they, you know, the hotel thing, and you had the anime movies come out, and obviously all the MonsterVerse crap. And it's a really important film, and it's also something that's not written about much, you know. But like I said before, like Ben, Godzilla artist, is in there. He's actually put up several interviews with Yoko about the subject, so like it's out there, but nothing's come of it, man. It's just one of those things where it's just like, okay, well, you know, the wrong people. Well, it's not really the wrong people, but like some dude saw it that didn't like, and it just goes to back to this idea that really Asia, especially, I mean, Korea, Japan, China, whatever, they want to control information. It's not necessarily like it's really nothing else other than, you know, you got these companies that want to control their IPs very, very closely. There's nothing wrong about it. It's just the way they do things, you know? And we just kind of flew too close to the sun, I guess, in that regard.
Yeah, that sucks, man. It's like, I guess, you know, in that guy's case, he kind of pulled a Jim Cornette. You exposed the business, and he didn't like it.
It's just weird though, man, because like there's never really because I talked extensively with a lot of people, you know, obviously, you know, Yoko is in there, but like I was calling up my buddy Norman England, you know, who lives in Japan. He lived there for like the past almost 30 years. He's worked on Toho Productions and works with all sorts of film stuff out there. And again, like it just kind of comes down to this cultural thing, you know. It wasn't like Toho proper, but like the guy who had the problem with it is kind of like this on again, off again Toho employee. You know what I mean? It's like there's a little tight knit circle, and it's like, you know, like you said, it's a lot like pro wrestling, or what I imagine, you know, maybe like magicians or something, you know, to be. It's like you got to protect the business, like you said, you know. And he felt, unlike here, you know, you can't go off and just talk about your experiences. It's like what happens at Toho stays at Toho, I guess.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. Ben says that's Katsura Noe for you. If somehow I'm friends with him on Facebook, insert thinking emoji.
Yeah, you know, I got my own kind of theories as to why he kind of got a little ticked off about that. Because, I mean, other people have been doing the same thing for years. You know what I mean? It's not like we were like some like amazing thing or whatever. But yeah, it was just a bizarre situation, man.
Yeah,
it didn't really leave a good taste in my mouth.
No, I don't blame you, man. It's yeah, and it sucks that it's something that now people unfortunately can't see on the regular anymore, because they were great interviews. I thought, and really, like I said, gave a lot of insight into what was going on behind the scenes there. Somebody in the chat says this isn't the Monstrosities channel.
That's Don. Another buddy of mine, super cool dude, amazing artist. I don't know if you've been around our live streams when we talk about Banjo Minya, but he's the one that did the picture of that. So.
Oh, okay. No, I don't think I have. I try to tune in when I can. You weird. You have a weird streaming schedule though. Just
what streaming schedule?
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. It's like it doesn't exist. I'm like, I try to catch them though when I can, whenever you're on though.
Always appreciate you showing up in those.
Yeah, man. I love to, man. It's always good discussion, and you guys are always. Yeah, the thing is too is you build up quite a bit of a little bit of a round table there with some of the people in the community there.
Yeah, you know, like I'm kind of working my way back into it, because like ever since all this stuff happened with, you know, in the world, it's been really kind of hard to get like creatively motivated with stuff. But like, you know, before that went down, I was trying to get more people who have some experience, whether it's writing in stuff or they've worked on these things, kind of to come together like into streams and just kind of talk and shoot the shit basically. And we've kind of gotten back into that more. Like there's definitely, in fact, what's weird is like just within the past week, more people have been asking me about stuff like that. And it's always I'm always so super interested to like do stuff like that, but at the same time, the biggest, and this is where I fail, is like how to make those streams as interesting as possible. You know what I mean? Because you don't want to turn into a lecture, right? Like half the fun of this stuff is like you're interacting with people, in the stream itself, and then obviously, in the chat and things of that nature. So like, it'll happen, man. It's just also a matter of just like when I have the time and when I'm feeling like the most creatively invigorated to like go and do that kind of thing. You know what I mean? Because, it takes time and effort, and I'm a lazy son of a bitch. So really?
Well, sometimes, just winging it like this can be good too, though. It's just, that's where you get the most organic conversations to come up, and, which me and you have had several of offline.
Well, how long have we known each other now? It's been a while.
It's been a while, because I want to say 2014, 2013.
I think it was before that. I think we met in. Oh, hold on. When did we meet at MAG? Was that 2015?
I think that was 20, and it was the year after Juario passed.
Right.
It was that MagFest, I believe, is when we met.
So, you know what? Maybe I think it was a little bit before. It might have been even 2013, dude. Okay. It's somewhere in that vicinity. You know what I mean? Because it wasn't what we weren't too old. We as in Monstrosities at the time, and then. Thanks to you, you're the reason why the Apollo's Yak episodes actually ever showed up on YouTube again. Yeah. Dude, guys, like this guy like bugged me for I don't even know how long. He's like, dude, you gotta put him up. Bro, put him up.
Yeah.
Put him up. And I'm
they
like,
had to be preserved.
I'm like, nah, they freaking suck. Nobody wants them.
It needed to be preserved. It's for preservation reasons.
Yes, exactly.
They needed to be preserved, so they needed to come back up. And plus, selfishly, I also wanted to watch them again because they weren't available anywhere else.
Oh man, they're horrible, but I appreciate it all the same.
No, the thing is, though, even if the editing or whatever hasn't aged well in them, it's not that. It's there. I think they're still good in terms of what you were doing with them and how they were written, and they were fun. I mean, I thought that honestly, around the time that you had put out this stuff, and again, and it's not to kiss your butt just because you're here. It's just I'm being sincere when I say this. I thought it was much better than a lot of stuff that, pretty much better than anything that I was seeing, Channel Awesome put up at the time, because I never really got into what they were doing there. I'm just being honest. For anybody in the chat that was fans of theirs, I'm not knocking you for being fans of theirs. It's just like their stuff just wasn't my flavor.
No, I really appreciate that. I think what my favorite thing about those, and I'm not like saying, oh, I did a great job. That's not what I'm getting at, but it was literally talking about the content of the movies, because there were some movies that we covered there that I still recommend people to this day, like movies like Ink or Strings or something like that. These indie sci-fi, like fantasy movies that nobody really has ever heard of. And that's always one of the, like, for me personally, it's one of the things I always get most excited about is when you find like that hidden gem of a movie that you had no idea existed that you actually end up falling in love with. It's not just like, I don't know, like you're just like, it's okay. But like you genuinely are like, man, this is really freaking good. And you kind of want to like share the love, I think there's still room for that today, just with like less eye patches and shitty plots that rip off like Kamen Rider Decade and Battlestar Galactica. But like, Channel Awesome was interesting, man. I obviously in private, you and I have talked about this extensively, but I mean, off the top of my head, I really cannot think of a platform that had so much potential, but it never went anywhere. Maybe some people were able to grab some stuff off of that, but they had like the keys to the kingdom, and they just ended up like, shooting themselves in the foot ultimately, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. Like, I think the biggest problem with a lot of the creators on there is that I think it got. I mean, well, we've seen what the fallout is. A lot of it, it's the same old thing, just over and over again. And then the other thing too, I think, was that one of the things that turned me off to a lot of people's content on that particular site was also that there got a point in time where some of them did it from the very beginning, where they would make content that some of it would be good. It was like very inconsistent. Some of it would be good, informative. Right. Like, okay, I feel this is good. I mean, I like the information in here. And then in the next whatever episode or of their series or whatever next review they did, they would ruin it by putting a lot of pretentious stuff in it. That it's just like, okay, you were doing fine before. You don't need to write a dissertation as to why this is good or not. You could get to the point without trying to sound this way. You know what I'm saying? This is not appealing because it's inconsistent, because the last, your previous video, you didn't do this, and now you're doing it in this video. And I think some people, I don't know why they did that, but I think it's like they felt that they needed to do that to, I guess, and maybe I'm wrong here, but this is just my opinion. I think it almost felt like they needed to do it to make their stuff more sophisticated. It's just like, you're reviewing either TV shows, movies, or, comic books or whatever it is that you do online. It doesn't, you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to.
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
You don't have to be the college professor doing it.
I think, and I think there's definitely a valid point there. I think that there's like two things going on with that. And again, I could be completely off. I think that for 99.9% of the people that did get on there, they started off as like a Doug Walker clone, right? You look at somebody like Lindsay Ellis. I mean, she was brought in as the nostalgia chick, right? And then, over the course of time, she kind of like threw that persona away and became exactly what you're talking about, the film analysis dissertation kind of thing. I also think that there's also an entire generation of, and this might be controversial and I apologize, but, I think, I think that it's very, very much a thing in internet culture, especially of our generation, for people to be like, oh, I'm an expert on this subject because I went to film school. I'm going to give you my two thoughts about this. I mean, everybody has an opinion. Everybody has a fucking like dissertation about something. But if they don't have the base of knowledge behind it, it's just a bunch of whatever, which is typically what I felt like some of those things to be. Not saying that with everybody, but yeah, I would happen to agree with you. There were people on there that really, I mean, fuck, man, Lindsay Ellis is still going super strong. I mean, she fucking, she found her thing. Doug is still going, I think. Yeah. But there are other people that are still, I think, doing the same shtick that they were doing back in 2009.
Yeah.
The fuck, but
yeah, and the novelty of that wears off really fast. When you see some of the stuff, right, like that we're seeing right now with some of these people that are still on top and with YouTube, right, they a lot of them, look, whether people love or hate a guy like PewDiePie, I give him credit because he's managed to stay relevant, and the reason for that is because he actually changed with the platform. He matured with the platform. He saw what was going on, and he's been smart enough to, okay, I could leave all my eggs in this basket that got me a lot of success, but let me step outside of this and show another side of me that, by doing this whole commentary stuff that he's doing now, and he has managed to stay on top because of it, and guys like guys that are so at the top, that's, they've managed to do it. I mean, we don't, if you look at now, right, like a guy like ABGN, and this is not a knock on him, because I think, everybody, started off watching a lot of his content, but again, the novelty of that particular content has kind of worn off. He's kind of, to me, he's pretty much peaked, right? I mean, it's not going to get that much more significantly higher from him. He'll always have a base because people are, of course, going to be loyal to him, and they've been fans since day one. And there's people that still like that, but I don't think it's going to get much higher for him. You know what I mean? I think he plateaued a long time ago. He'll still have some growth, but it'll never be like how it was.
No, and I would agree with that too. I mean, ultimately, if these people can like find ways to, again, continue to do what they're doing, make a living out of it, like, good for them, man. It's freaking amazing that they're able to do that. And if you enjoy the content, it's perfectly fine too. But yeah, I think you're right. It's gotten to a point now to where like none of that stuff is ever going to get as hot as it was, and it's certainly not going to permeate anything outside of the realms of which it's already in. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know.
Exactly.
Interesting times.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. I mean, like I said, it's just, I guess it's just the nature of where YouTube is, where it's come to now. And when I look at, what you were discussing before with people like being like film film majors or film students. I don't think there's anything wrong with using that and applying that to what you're doing, but I think what you're trying to say was basically it doesn't necessarily mean that because of that it makes you more of an authority on a particular a particular genre of something. So, as we know, I mean, I think it's no secret for those of you that are here in the chat right now and are subscribed to both of us. I'm sure you saw Matt's recent video, and I like that video because I think it's one that started a lot of conversation within, not just because it's not something that could be applied just to the Tokusatsu community. I think it
can be applied across the board.
Yeah,
it can be everywhere.
Yeah, it can be. It can be applied outside of this particular fandom, and it's interesting because it is something that is happening much more prominently, where a lot of people are getting put into certain positions, and I think it's fair for people to question their qualifications of whether or not they should be there, based on I think it's something that should be based on merit. Of course, that's just me. I'm old school, and I think most people that are old school, probably think the same way, that you should be put in a position based on the merit and the work that you've put in, not just because of you getting excited over something, and because like you said in your video, because you collect the toys.
Well, it's super interesting. You're bringing up wrestling before, man, and like I don't really talk about it a whole lot on over on my streams or anything. It never really gets brought up, but like I'm like a closet wrestling fan. Like I don't fucking watch WWE anymore because I think it's garbage, but I still listen to a bunch of podcasts and I still like watch the shoot interviews and stuff. And there was this one shoot interview I think that Al Snow did with that company You Shoot, I think. And there's a clip on YouTube if you go look at it, but he talks about Dave Meltzer, the wrestling journalist who's been around for 400 years, right?
Yeah.
he talks about why he doesn't like him, and it's really interesting because a lot of the stuff that he says and the problems that he has can kind of be applied to what we're talking about now. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's Meltzer, for you guys who don't know, I mean, he's known as just this dude. He runs the Wrestling Observer, I think. Yeah. It's been something around, again, it's been around for decades, and he's been known, from my understanding, to just spout off whatever. It might not be even legit information, but he's still considered a wrestling journalist,
an authority.
Right.
Yeah.
And one of the things that Al Snow had mentioned was that his problem is, like, rather than, if a story came up, if a pro wrestling news story came up, the media doesn't go to people like Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, or John Cena. They go to guys like Dave Meltzer, you know what I mean? Who's never had any experience in the business or anything. So I don't know. There's arguments to be made because, like you said, I've seen lots of different sides of the discussion, and it's interesting. But I'm just saying, like, if you're on a platform and the platform is advertising you as a genre expert and you come off looking like you're just a bullshit artist, then like you got no place being there, because there's plenty of other people that could probably do a better job than that. You know what I mean? Yeah. But again, just my opinion.
Yeah, and one that I agree with also, but I thought it was interesting because there was a lot of I saw some of those discussions that were being had regarding your video, and there was a term that people were kind of
not so be something about keeping of the gate.
Yes, a term that people kept bringing up, saying that you were I think some of the things I saw were that you were passive aggressively gatekeeping, and I thought, I was just like, well,
one of the nicer things I've been called, actually. Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting because I'm like, I don't think that people were really listening. They weren't getting the point that you were trying to make, and it wasn't in a thing of. And I saw that some people were looking at what you were saying, and they were thinking, "Oh, he's calling so and so out," and it's just like, it's not that you were trying to really zero in on one person in particular. I think, I mean, obviously it's timely because of things that have occurred lately that it came out. But I know that that's not what you were doing, because I know we talk on a regular basis, and I know that your intent wasn't to zero in and target anybody in particular. You were obviously generalizing in what you were saying.
It's been a problem. Like this isn't that, and you're right. That video wasn't like, it didn't start because of one guy. Like this is something that I've noticed, at least in my little area of fandom. I've been noticing happen more and more and more, and I didn't directly state anybody's name because, I get called passive aggressive for not directly stating somebody's name. But had I stated somebody's name, I would have been told, oh, he's just trying to start shit because it's just drama. I mean, that's how the internet works, right?
Exactly.
But yeah, as far as like the gatekeeping thing goes, like, fuck, man, anybody can be a fan of this stuff, like anybody, and everybody should. And the fact that we have so much of this stuff coming out, I mean, Kamen Rider Kuga debuted today. I mean, John, seriously, did you ever think, I'm serious, did you ever think that we were going to see Kamen Rider Kuga debut in the States?
No, because, not at all. Not on a streaming service, not an official streaming service for, an American audience. No.
Dude, and we're getting like Sentai, like DVD sets. That's been going on for a while. All this Ultraman stuff coming from Mill Creek. We got the Showa Godzilla collection from Criterion. We got the Gamera Arrow Blu-ray set coming in, which is also, just filled with a bunch of stuff. And like everybody should be getting into this. But I don't really think it's gatekeeping when you're asking for people that you want like relevant information. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to be like put into a position again of authority, whether it be on those DVD extras or on a talk show platform or something of that nature, if you're being put at the forefront by a company that distributes this kind of thing, a company like, let's say, Shout Factory, who in the past has a very, very, very deep history of not only giving quality product, but also quality information, right? I mean, look at their old Gamera sets that they did, specifically the Showa Gamera sets that they did with August Rigone, right? Packed with commentaries and all sorts of stuff like that. Speaking of Rigone, they also have used him for their mini Ultraman releases, right? Just for the liner notes and stuff of that nature. And then when it gets to a point where you're just throwing people on who, A, haven't watched that much of the show, and B, are just kind of pulling things out of their butt that really have no basis, like that's kind of a dangerous position, in my opinion. Now, if everyone's opinion of it is like, well, who cares? You know what I mean? Who cares about the kind of the nature of this genre? Let's just enjoy what it has to offer. Let's enjoy the stories and all the toys, and it's all good. Then, maybe that's fine. Maybe then I'm just the old man who is expecting too much, right? But this is such a niche ass genre, right? That the further along we get, and these other dudes start getting older, and I'm talking like Rigone, I'm talking about guys, some names that may not come up very often on your side of the fandom, but like Steve Rifle, Ed Godchevsky, David Collette, Norman England, these guys that are very big in the kaiju scene, these guys are going to eventually go away, right? And they're going to take their stories with them. And there's a whole generation of people out there that need to preserve that and continue on with that work, right? Because we're very lucky in the West that we have people like that. I don't really know what the situation over in Japan is, but like we're a world removed, man. And the fact that we're getting kind of like information with journalistic integrity behind it is incredible, and it would be my hope that would continue and it wouldn't devolve into, well, anybody can talk about Tokusatsu as long as they got all this shit behind them. I've never once considered myself an expert. I've never posed as an expert. Even if I was thrown onto a platform, I would not want to be called an expert. You know what I mean? But I can tell you, if I was thrown onto a platform, I'd at least watch the show I was supposed to be talking about. Yeah. But it's just one of those things, man. Like I said, Shout Factory is not the only person who's done it. Funimation did it with their Shin Godzilla DVD, and it's quick and it's cheap to do things like that. But I think it sets a precedent that if it continues because it's cheap, it's just going to end up not being anything of real value. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because statements like what came out about the Shout Factory stuff, it's not helpful. And not only is it not helpful, it's also completely and totally off base. You know what I mean?
Yeah. 100%.
If anyone's allowed to have an opinion, then I guess anybody can do a DVD commentary. And I guess, like I said, then it's completely on me. But that's just one butthead's opinion, But
no, but it makes sense because again, you want to, especially if you're discussing this stuff, you want to provide a substantive argument towards this stuff and be able not just you're just doing people a disservice also if you don't, I mean, I think if you really care about this stuff also, I mean, what is it going to cost you to just get it right?
Are there dudes, and you're right, are there dudes on the Henshin Hero side of things? And I know that we've talked about this outside of here, but are there dudes out there that you know of that aren't getting kind of like, I guess, kind of the recognition that they deserve, that are going out there and reporting on stuff, whether it be past, present, future, whatever? Like, are there people doing that kind of legwork out there?
See, the thing is, there are people that are hustling out there that aren't just enthusiasts. I mean, we got one of them in the chat right now. I think Marcos does a good job of getting his information and digging for his stuff. Well,
dude, I saw some of their stuff the other day, and it's just like, wait, why aren't these guys getting hired? Like, seriously. And they had an Ultra Q video I watched, and I'm like, I know nothing about this. I knew nothing that was presented in that video, but it was awesome. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, no, you're good. But people, there are people, but the thing is, like, it's like what's going on over on the kaiju side of things. They're not really getting spotlighted because of they're not tweeting however many times a day about how much they like something with this enthusiasm and built up a fan base, or have made the kind of connections that other people have made, because maybe they just have, either they don't have the means to, or because they just haven't been at the right place at the right time.
Right.
Now, I think in time that will change. I mean, because eventually, I mean, I've never considered myself an expert in any of this stuff either, and I've openly admitted that there's been times that I've gotten stuff wrong on even Henshin time. I mean, it's the nature of how it goes, because there's nowhere near as much information available on the Henshin Hero side of stuff as there is on the kaiju side, and
which is crazy to me, because the Henshin Hero stuff is so much more popular, and it's also there's so many other iterations of it too currently, and all this stuff.
Yeah, it's just because there's just not a whole lot of subject matter. It's like with Godzilla. I think the good thing about Godzilla 2 is, well, for one, it's because it's been around a little bit longer. That definitely gave it an advantage. It became a pop cultural symbol way before, decades before, something like Power Rangers ever did. So it's something that's known worldwide. And then you have, like you said, the old guard of people that actually, put in the work, did the legwork to learn about this stuff, maybe go as far as learn the Japanese language, get materials from Japan, read things, documents from Japan and things of that nature. I'm not saying that people aren't doing that on the Tokusatsu side. I'm sure there's plenty of people that are. It just hasn't, there hasn't been one of them that has come out and put out a book along the lines of something that maybe like the guys you mentioned have done, like Steve Rifle and some of these other people. They haven't done anything on that grand of a scale just yet. But I think, it's only a matter of time before somebody does. But it just hasn't happened yet. It's just not there yet. And I'm sure there's people that are actively doing it right now. And I mean, there's people that are putting in some pretty good work in researching stuff. There's another YouTube channel that that I think the guy is pretty well informed on stuff. Vintage Henshin, I believe is the name of the channel, which I think is one of those people that is really looking into stuff. It's interesting because I actually watched Vintage Henshin's video about and breaking down the Toys That Made Us episode about Power Rangers, and I was just like,
right.
Yep, he's right, and I actually shared his video, and and there's with things like that, like with these mainstream shows, unfortunately they're not going to get the stuff right either, I mean, because there's a narrative that they're going to want to push, to make it entertaining for their audience, or depending on who they have involved in those productions. It's, how does this saying go? History is written by the winners. So some of that is also at play when it comes to stuff like this. But I think guys like, Marcos, Vintage Henshin, I think those guys are like, the future, at least in terms of the stuff they're doing regarding Henshin heroes and stuff like that, doing the work, doing the legwork, finding out about this stuff, really kind of trying to get it right. And taking the time to actually get it right. So
it's and that's good to hear that there's actually YouTubers that are doing that. Like, I'm not trying to cast shade on any of my fellow kaiju YouTubers, but I don't necessarily feel like the future of what we're talking about lies on this platform. I think most of the people that are doing that work in the kaiju side of things are the ones who are actually writing articles and stuff, you know, for websites and stuff like that. Books, there's still books coming out written by, you know, authors like John LeMay, who I'm really surprised is not much more popular than where he's at. He's written like 5 books, completely different books on the subject, you know? And so, yeah, I mean, there are definitely people out there. It's just, I think the ultimate happy medium, you know, if you had to combine, you know, you could get the enthusiast with the toys, and you could get the academic, and you could, you know, put them together, and, you know, could make for a good time, and just, they balance out each other. Right. But it's just like, you know, I totally understand where you just have one or the other. It might turn people off, but, you know, I can definitely tell you that I get turned off by the whole, like, you know, just, oh my God, toys, I love this, you know, and that's all it's about. Isn't it so cool? I love the part when it exploded, you know. So it's just interesting, you know. I mean, maybe it'll swing into a different direction. And again, the biggest problem, the biggest issue is that, you know, we're a world removed from where all this stuff takes place. You know what I mean? And not everybody can learn Japanese and do that kind of thing. It takes a really long time to develop a lot of the connections and stuff that these other people that we've mentioned have, but there are people doing it, you know? So, I mean, that's the important thing for sure.
Yeah. And then all the research, you know, it takes to learn about this stuff. And I mean, and like you said, and one thing that you also had talked about in your video is, you know, one of the more obvious ones is the things that they've experienced. You know, people that haven't necessarily experienced these, you know, these cultures that they speak about, but want to give an authoritative opinion on them.
Dude, no, look, this is strictly opinion, okay? And what I'm about to say is opinion only, and has no reflection on whether I'm right or wrong or whatever. This is just my opinion, but I cannot stand people that sit there and they tell you, they're like, oh, this is what it's like in Japan. Like, literally when you just stepped off the plane from Japan, right? And that actually happened. And it's not about, God, it seems like it's so elitist, right? But like, a really good friend of mine, when I came back from my first trip, I was just trying to tell him, it's like, yeah, and then we did this, and then he just starts spouting off all this stuff. Well, yeah, and then they do this, and did you know, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, you're really well read. That's great, but you got to go out and experience it too. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I don't know, man. I would much rather listen to experience than I would rather listen to somebody who's like, oh, I've read like 20 books on the subject. You know what I mean? It's like, go out there and experience it. And I think that's another problem too, is like, you know, recently, I'm not going to name names. It's not important. And it was a really small thing, but there was a little Twitter dispute with, let's just say, a kaiju YouTuber and a well-known Godzilla personality. And the YouTuber has never stepped foot in Japan, has never done anything, but because he's gotten his master's or whatever in world history and stuff, he knows better than people that live in Japan. And it's that kind of attitude that I don't like. You know what I mean? It's not like you need to be there, but at the same time, you also should acknowledge the fact that maybe, I don't know. I think you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, well, exactly. You're dismissing the insight of the person that's actually experienced the culture by living there, by living among them, and trying to dismiss that as not being enough, which is weird. Because, you know, that obviously makes a difference in the conversation, and it's going to make a difference in the subject matter, right? In what you end up putting out there. So,
especially if you're talking about, like, you know, the country in a context in, like, you know, the late 60s or something like that. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, that's going to be stuff that you're really going to have to reach deep back on. And I don't know, you know, it's just personal preference, in my opinion, anyways.
Yeah, no, I get it. And hopefully, I mean, look, to make a long story short, I guess, I don't think you're a gatekeeper, and I think most people in this chat who have seen the video would agree that.
You know what? I'm the lead gatekeeper. Godzilla artist in the chat's always saying he's like the king of the gatekeepers. No, man, I'm like the motherfucking Kaiser of the Grand Kaiser of the gatekeepers. So. Yeah.
So do you think, and I just, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but do you think that the reason why people just immediately jumped to, oh, you're just trying to start drama because of maybe, times in the past where you've had maybe run-ins with some other creators and things like that? Do you think that's why, or because, something, you cross paths with somebody that
there's been a few times that's happened over the course from Channel Awesome all the way to now. I also think it's just the nature of people that, whatever's the status quo is just the status quo, and how dare you question it, and you're an idiot for questioning it. If you don't like it, just go away and just move your own thing. I've never been one, if I see something that I feel is wrong. And I guess the other thing too is like a lot of this stuff in the grand scheme of things, it's meaningless, right? The stuff that we're talking about right now, like on the Tokusatsu side, it really is meaningless. But, the fan in me wants this stuff preserved. So it's like, if I'm seeing a trend of products that are coming out and I'm consuming said products, I feel like I have the right to be able to say something about it, It's the same thing with fellow YouTubers and stuff like that. There's people that will go out there and they'll say things, they'll do things. Now, look, I could be completely off base. You know what I mean? I'm not a perfect individual. But like, if they're doing something that's like harming me or, harming someone else that I know in some way, shape, or form, whether it's in a, from a just a perception level or whatever, I'm going to say something about it. And most of the time, like the thing is, most of the time people they hate confrontation. They hate being like set up with stuff like this. And most of the time it can be diffused with like, oh, okay, I'm sorry I acted like that. And, let's just, call it cool, whatever. But most of the time they don't do anything because I don't know, man. It's entirely possible. Nobody likes drama, and I understand that drama is just, whatever. And I've definitely had my fair share of it, but I stick by everything I've always done and have said, I mean, dude, look at Channel Awesome, right? Like, look at when I left Channel Awesome 10 years ago, or whatever the hell it was, and all that stuff happened. And at the time, all that stuff about Suburban Nights came out because I had said stuff. And at the time, people were like, oh, you're just overblowing stuff. You're just mad about this and that. Don't listen to them, blah, blah, blah. And then what was it, 3 years ago? All of them were like, oh, it's true, all of it. In fact, here's more bad stuff that they did. What I mean? It's just, the internet's just a weird fucking thing. And it's really what it all comes down to.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because when you look at all these situations, you look at them in the past, and I agree. I think that, look, there's times where I think Biggie said it best. He said sometimes you gotta step around, and sometimes you gotta step right into it. It's not to say that people are always constantly looking for to pick a fight with people just because. And I know that that's not what you were doing, and I think that that's something that people would probably try to ascribe to you because of things that have happened in the past. But people that know you or that were actually paying attention to what you were saying in that video would see that that wasn't the case. And honestly, I mean, you were as diplomatic as you possibly could be. I mean, you didn't name names, like you said, and it wasn't because it was directed at anybody specific. It's because that's the state of affairs. That's just the way things are right now.
There's literally two ways you can take criticism, right? There's this way of like, you watch the video I put out and said dude or whoever looks at it and goes, who the hell is this freaking Godzilla loving motherfucker? Like, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to like swing and I'm going to hit a home run and I'm going to prove not just to him, but to all these naysayers why I deserve the spot. I'm going to knock it out of the park. I'm going to do the best job I possibly can. That's one way of taking it. Or you can go the other way, which I've apparently have heard that this is the way it's been taken, which is, oh, he's just a big fat gatekeeper. I didn't do anything, like it's, I don't know, man. I feel like I'm just kind of like not really making a point with this. But, it's not really about attacking people. It's about kind of like saying, it's like, yo, look, like change this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, do something. You know, prove. I don't know.
Prove you wrong. Prove you wrong.
And I will say, I always feel like in the end, I'm usually proven right with this stuff sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what miffs people. But
well, the thing is, Well, the thing is, look, and that's the other thing too, is in order to see the improvements. I mean, I wouldn't mind being proven wrong over stuff. And I know you played it.
Totally. Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing too. It's like, how can you be proven wrong unless you question it? You know what I mean? Yeah. And I hope that I'm wrong too, yeah. So sorry. I feel like I'm just like losing kind of like.
No, you're fine.
The valid points here, but.
No, you're doing fine. And the thing is, look, at the end of the day, it is what it is. And it's just one man's opinion, and people can take it for what it is. Well, I mean, I share your opinion too, but that's all it is. It's, it's interesting because this is stuff that, recently, I got into a spirited discussion with one of my subscribers on a video I put out recently, actually, regarding the Last of Us. I'm sure you heard the whole Last of Us 2 debacle, right?
Yeah, I did hear about that. I didn't see much outside of a couple things, and I was like, okay, I think I'm going to be waiting to buy this because I love Last of Us 1, man. It's one of
so do I.
Top 10 video games of all time, in my opinion.
Yeah, I thought it was a great game too. I like it, and and I understood his point of view, what he was trying to argue to me, because the video that I put up was basically one talking about how Naughty Dog is handling the leaks, and basically the leaks, the way they're handling the leaks that happen with it is, or at least, in terms of here on YouTube, one of the ways they're handling people talking about the leaks, not even showing them, but just talking about them, is copyright striking down their videos, which is illegal. Absolutely illegal. And a lot of these channels are ones that haven't even they haven't even shown, like, some of them have shown screenshots, but they're screenshots of stuff that was already officially released months ago, right? Not even necessarily screenshots of the leaks. Okay. And they're certainly not sharing the leaks in the videos. And some people they're literally just talking about the stuff. They're just talking about the leaks. And the person I was having this discussion with was trying to say, like, well, basically, they were trying to say, like, well, like a video like mine, which I was just talking about them going after people, just talking about the leaks, could, that's something that could have a negative impact and could influence people to not buy the game. And I'm just like, well, the thing is, whether that might be true, I can acknowledge that might be true, but at the same time, it's just like, look, there's people that are still going to buy the game despite the leaks, despite knowing what the plot is. It's already out there. There's still going to be some people that'll buy it. Maybe not as much as before. It's possible, but that's not a guaranteed thing. That's purely a hypothetical thing. And the way I look at it, when you put out an opinion out there, and that's one thing I always do. I always make it clear that it's just my opinion, and I don't know any of these companies any kind of loyalty, by discussing it. If it's out there, it's out there. I mean, do I agree that the stuff should have been leaked? No, because that's that's not right to the people that worked on it, right? That sucks for the people that actually worked on it, and
it's unfortunate that it happened that way.
Yeah, and obviously there, because they were just people doing their jobs, whether they agreed with what was happening in the game or not. Look, people get paid to do what they get paid to do, right? It's the people at the top that make those choices. But, I can't control how people are going to take the information that I'm talking about and let it influence them, and that influence comes with how they allow it to influence them. You know what I mean? And that has nothing to do with me. You know what I mean?
Like, in some ways, it's kind of like, I mean, word of mouth has always been, the main marketing thing since ever, right?
Yeah.
So like, you can't really, most of the time, I mean, obviously people always want good word of mouth, but I mean, if word of mouth is bad, it's not like you can say, oh, you're not, I don't know, man. Yeah. This stuff flusters me because it doesn't seem like there's ever a concrete answer to do this, because the thing is, especially on this platform, companies are just going to continue to do this unabated, unchallenged. You know, we had an incident last year when we posted a King of the Monsters review that was early, right? And God, everybody had a shit fit about it. We got taken down by Legendary, you know, DMCA or whatever the hell it is. And then literally a week after that, some other dude posted, you know, a review that was like, again, way early, got like 500,000 views, and everyone's like, "Oh man, this is awesome!" Like, it doesn't make any sense to me, and it sucks because it doesn't seem like there's going to be like any real way to stop this or to change this. You know what I mean? Even addressing it, even pointing it out. You know, somebody had mentioned like Disney in here. I mean, dude, how many times has that happened? You know what I mean? I mean, they got the freaking book written on how to squash unpopular opinions or to turn it around and make it seem like, you know, oh no, it's just all in your head, you know?
Yeah. I mean, look at the last Star Wars movie. It's still holding an 86% or something audience score, and it has been since the movie came out, which is probably not true. Right. You know, on Rotten Tomatoes. So, and you know, the thing is, like I said, I understand the point that the person I was having a discussion with was trying to make. Like, you know, that's not fair to those companies, but at the same time, it's just like, look, sometimes stuff like this happens. You know what I mean? I'm not the one that leaked this stuff. You know what I mean? And truthfully, look, it's interesting to me that.
Sorry to interrupt. So by talking about it, you're responsible.
Well, I don't think he was trying to say that specifically, but like videos like mine where they kind of, bring it up, right? Bring up the whole thing with the leaks, then that people might find the links and it might potentially ruin the experience for them. I mean, again, that's not really on me, because if I'm a person that doesn't want something to get spoiled for me, I don't actively seek out any information regarding.
Yeah, there is kind of a choice of whether or not you're going to watch a video.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like that's
or get any information.
Really don't understand. It's like if there's a Big Mac in front of you, right? You know it's awful for you. Just because it's sitting in front of you, you don't need to take a bite out of it, you know, and be like, oh man, I need to sue McDonald's now because this food's killing me. Like, you took the fucking bite, dude.
Yeah. And I don't disagree with the idea that, okay, well, it's wrong that, this kind of stuff happened to these companies. Yeah, sure. Because as employees, because apparently it was a couple of them that leaked it. It was a group of them that leaked it. Supposedly, allegedly, it was a group of employees at Naughty Dog, I think, that released it, or Sony. I don't know who, because I know Naughty Dog is owned by Sony, but basically they don't know. They haven't said specifically who. I mean, yeah, they shouldn't have done that, but the bottom line, look, they did. It happened. There's no going back. There's no way of changing it. And I don't condone it. I think it's horrible. Like I said, especially to the other people that worked on it, again, that might not necessarily even agree with the turn that the game is taking. You know what I mean? They're not getting paid for what they think. They're getting paid to just do their job, right? So that obviously it's going to affect them by extension, and that sucks. And the thing is, I think that the way that Naughty Dog and Sony is handling it is horrible. It's the worst possible way that you could handle it, by trying to silence people just even talking about it. People are going to talk about it regardless. It's the Streisand effect. You know what I mean? You're not going to shut people up from talking about it. And if somebody is influenced by somebody else talking about it, and I think it's flattering that somebody would think that me giving an opinion on it would impact anybody's decision to purchase it or not. I mean, I don't think I have that much of an influence that somebody would listen to what I have to say in a video and determine whether or not, they may, but I don't think that they would necessarily have me be the determining factor on whether or not they want to purchase that game or not, right? Totally. So, I mean, that's cool. I mean, I can appreciate that, but at the end of the day, again, I have my own opinions on stuff, and if people value that opinion, cool. But I would certainly not say, to take it as gospel. I mean, I've told people that before, like people that have told me, oh, I like the Power Rangers movie. Like this happened to me, I think like 2 or 3 years ago at this point. I was on a podcast where the Power Rangers 2017 movie came up, and I remember saying that I didn't like it. You know what I mean? I didn't like it. And then I explained why I didn't like it. And then the person who previously had told me they liked it and told me why, they're like, oh, well, now that you mentioned that, I feel kind of dumb about like. I was like, no, don't feel dumb. I'm like, that's your opinion. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Like,
it's okay. I'm not calling you dumb.
Right.
For because I didn't like it because of XYZ reason. You know what I'm saying? That's not, you shouldn't feel bad because I didn't like it for these reasons. That doesn't make you dumb that you didn't like it for those same reasons. Your opinion is your opinion. You know what I mean? However if you liked it because it hit those sweet spots for you, whether it be the story, the acting, whatever, the action, whatever it is that you liked it, that's fine. You know what I mean? That's the beautiful thing about us having civil discourse and having, being able to talk about this stuff is that it's okay. It's okay to agree to disagree on it.
Yeah.
So
it also, I've said this before. I'd much rather listen to the dude who says stuff like, Power Rangers 2017 is my favorite movie in the world, than to the dude who just kind of is the sheep with the rest of the herd and just has the same vanilla opinion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And right though, like sharing opinions and talking about opinions, it's not gospel. It's not trying to put other people down, And I feel like that's definitely something, at least in my neck of the woods, that I've noticed. If you don't particularly like a movie, it doesn't matter. It could be, say, the Godzilla King of the Monsters, right? The one right over there, the latest one. People are like, you're ruining it for everybody. It's like, what? Like I have no power of, I don't get it. It's it's weird times. And unfortunately, I think it really stems, it's permeated just about every aspect of our society, because I don't think it's just like an entertainment based thing, an online based thing. I think it runs much deeper than that, and it's just this is just another example of a long line of examples. But yeah, civil discourse is the best thing. I would much rather have a diverse conversation with people who like a variety of different things than just sit there and declare this is black or this is white. You know what I mean? And then that be it, essentially.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And it's just like, and it's fine. Like I said, I don't mind that this person disagreed and felt the way they felt. You know what I mean? Just that's just stuff that happens. I mean, it just, again, it's one of those things where I think it's okay to talk about. I think it's okay to talk about anything, regardless of which. I mean, if people saw the trailer for Ghostbusters, what was it, 2016, and didn't want to go watch it after seeing the trailer, that's
ever made. Next to Cats and the Greasy Strangler, Ghostbusters 2016 is the best movie ever.
But you see what I'm saying? It's just like, obviously that's what trailers are for, right? They're stuff that you see out of context, so most of the time that you see them, right? But their intent is to try to get you interested in watching. Or not with the leaks. I kind of see that as you got a little bit more with these Last of Us leaks, obviously, because you got some plot details that were some very important plot details that were released because of it. And how do we know they're true? Well, because Naughty Dog didn't deny that they weren't true. For one, they haven't made any kind of statement rebutting them. So obviously, I mean, they got to be true, right? Or at least that's going to be the presumption of most, is that, well, I guess the fact that they didn't address it and say that they weren't true leads us to believe that they are. So, but again, this person was trying to tell me, like, there's these leaks that were released with no context. I said, well, by that logic, then it's no different from trailers. If you think about it, we're getting a lot less with like movie trailers or game trailers, and we have to determine whether or not it's something we want to invest our money in based on little information, and maybe some previews here and there from gaming websites, but it's more or less the same thing. It's not too much different from that. So I think there's still going to be people, despite the leaks, that are still going to buy the game. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And just like, and if there's people that don't want to buy it now based on the leaks with it, that's fine too. That's the beautiful thing about the free market, is that we always get to vote with our dollars. You know what I mean?
Precisely. Yeah.
And that's the way.
I'm right there with you about not really knowing. Like, you spend $60 for a game, you have no idea what you're getting into, right? And I think that I've been burned one too many times with either movies or TV shows or even video games. Like, I just finished playing the Final Fantasy VII remake yesterday, and that's right, we talked about it briefly, but like the ending to that game is like completely wackadoo and weird and changes everything. But like, point being is like, it'd be nice to know certain things. I don't know. I'm sorry. I feel like I'm just like not finishing thought. Basically, I agree with you. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
I'll say, cheers to that, John. You know, water rather than being like, well, blah, 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 because I feel like I'm not adding anything.
No, it's all good. I guess now, if anything, we could start opening it up to questions from the chat. I got Charizard Ranger asking one here. Do you think that Go-Go Power Rangers has concluded for Boom Studios? They could return to the world of 2017 Power Rangers movie and turn it into a comic series? Maybe. I'm sure it would probably fare better if they got a good writer on the comics. It would probably fare better as a comic book than it would a movie. But maybe. I don't know. I don't know what's happening. To be perfectly honest with you, I don't know what's happening in the world of Power Rangers comic books, because I haven't really kept up with them. I mean, I don't really have that much interest in them, to be honest.
I was going to say, not to put you on the spot, you weren't. I'm trying to remember, because you reviewed like issue 1, right, or something like that.
0 through 7. 0 through 7.
Yeah. And you were not very. You're not too hot on that, right?
I didn't care for it. I mean, I understand from people that have read them, they say that it gets better, but I just for me, like, and this is not for me as a Super Sentai or Power Rangers fan. This is just me as a comic book fan. If I'm not invested within the first like 2 or 3 issues, I'm probably not going to get invested in it. You know what I mean?
Totally.
It's gotta draw me in pretty soon. It's got to give me a good reason to stay. Otherwise, I don't really care. Those first couple issues of Power Rangers, I felt were just very mediocre, and I just couldn't get into. I just couldn't get into them. Now, like I said, I might get back around to reading them to see, because people are saying that they do get better. But I guess I just got to take the time to do it again. I got to take the time to check them out again and see if they're worth me reading again. But so far, I mean, I'm not convinced. I mean, I read also, I think, the first 7 issues of Go-Go Power Rangers, and I thought that was a little bit more cohesive. And honestly, I thought it was a little bit more interesting than the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers comic series. I thought that one was a little bit better.
Totally.
I thought that the characters felt a little bit more familiar than they did in the Mighty Morphin comics. But those are ones that I would have to read a little bit more to make a final determination on as well. So, but it's just the interest it's just not there.
I hear you.
It's just not there. I'd have to force myself to read them again. So
same thing with the Godzilla comics too. Like there's a couple good ones out there, but for the most part, like I've read several, and people are just like, oh, they're so good, and I can't really get into them either. So
yeah,
I will avoid the Power Ranger ones for sure.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's just like with comic books nowadays, it's hard to get into some of them. I mean, there's some good ones out there, but it's just they're so few and far between. It's not like how it was. I would even say I would say about maybe 15 years ago at this point, like early 2000s, early to mid 2000s, I think was a decent time. I think there was a lot of good stuff out around that time. You know, Grant Morrison was on the X-Men. You know, we had Jeff Johns on just about everything DC that was really good. And it was just it was a good time. Now it's just it's not there right now. You know, there's too many. There's not enough good story writing in comics these days, and there's a lot of
good story writing anywhere.
Yeah, anywhere. Yeah, if you can apply it to pretty much anywhere. You know, TV shows, movies. I mean, it's just it's not about the character development much anymore. It's just about checking off boxes for the sake of gotta have this, gotta have this, gotta have this, gotta have this. Okay, there we go. Let's run with it, and it's not good. And I'm not saying the Power Rangers comic books are like that for anybody here in the chat. I just haven't read far enough to know. Hopefully, there's not any of that in them, but
it is a real thing, though. I mean, that's the unfortunate.
Oh, absolutely.
There are some. I mean, there's still some good stuff out there, but a lot of those much more popular pop culturally kind of shows or pop kind of shows. You know what I'm talking about? Just it's a mess.
Yeah, it's a huge mess, and it's just man. Yeah, there's really nothing. There's nothing good anymore. There's nothing good anymore. What happened?
You know, on like the major franchise fronts, I would say that, you know, there's been a couple of shows. Like I hate to use the term. I mean, I feel like we're kind of not really addressing, but I hate to use the term like woke or something.
Yeah.
But like, there's this show on Amazon that I feel has everything that we're talking about, like usually that are in those check boxes, but did it in a way that was so unique and just was so like the storytelling and the characters were front and center. There's this show called Undone. Have you watched that?
Haven't seen it. Mm-mm.
Crazy show, man. Crazy show. Sci-fi. You know, main character is a Hispanic girl. I think she's like 26, 27 or something like that. And a lot of the main characters are all women. And it's very, even the fact that she's Hispanic is continually brought up, but in instances that are not condescending, that are actually kind of funny, you know, but the writing is sharp. The storyline is great. The acting is fantastic. And that was something I was really kind of thinking, like, you know, because a lot of these things, that's what it seems like some people are asking for. But here was a show that was doing that and delivering that, but in a way, at least that I felt, that wasn't that typical just, you know, politics before story kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's good stuff. I highly suggest it.
See, and that's the thing, and I think that's where a lot of people will probably misinterpret things sometimes. I don't think there's I'm not a person that would say, politics don't belong in stories ever. You know what I mean?
Oh, no.
I don't think, I think you could use them as as a plot device in a story. Like I said, if there's something that helps move the story along, I don't mind that. But if the story becomes the politics, then that to me is completely unappealing. It's just like, okay, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care about this. I want to know what happens to these characters. I want you to tell me a good story about them, something that gets me invested in them. Not, I don't want you to preach to me. That's not why I watch the stuff that I watch. That's not why I read the stuff that I read. I want, these are all mediums that are forms of escape for me, from having to deal with this stuff on a constant day-to-day basis. You know what I mean? So, and even then, like I said, I don't mind if they're necessarily, if there's bits and pieces of them in these other mediums, just don't make them the center of these mediums.
Yeah, I think I don't know if it's the right word, but I think that in some shape or form or something, subtlety needs to really be applied, because I feel like sometimes it's just, I mean, I don't know, man.
That's a lot.
Yeah, sorry, I keep on just saying I don't know, but just back in the 60s when Star Trek was writing episodes about the Vietnam War, you know what I mean? And they were making parallels and stuff like that. They were doing it in a way that wasn't like, oh, this is about the Vietnam War. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you don't really have that with shows today. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just like, oh, you know exactly what they're talking about. Oh yeah. All men are stupid, stuff like that, or whatever the hell. We've had many discussions about that. And, it's really sad that a lot of major franchises like Star Wars, Star Trek, they've kind of been hijacked by that idea a little bit,
Yeah, it's, that's the thing. It's just like, that's another thing too, like metaphors and things like that that's kind of a lost art as well, using metaphors and things like this. It's almost like they think that the people that watch this stuff, they're going to be too dumb to catch on to a metaphor. So they just have to spell it out for you. It's just like, look, this is this, and it's just like, dude, okay.
Good storytelling is just like any other art form, man. It takes a lot of work, like it's a craft. It's not just, it really feels like nowadays anybody can just go and write something, but it's just like anything else. It's like any athletic event. It's like any kind of skill that takes years and years to construct. I mean, it takes a lot of time and effort to make something cohesive and make something really good. It's much easier to spout out a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You mentioned Star Trek earlier, and it's interesting because I always see people. I've seen people always go. The people that are, trying to make arguments for, say, like a show Picard, they'll be quick to bring up, well, Star Trek has always been about communism, and I'm just like, well, I mean, that's partially true, but you do also realize that in Star Trek they also live in a meritocracy, which touts the tenets of capitalism. You know what I mean? Because people still even though they don't have a monetary society, they still earn things. They earn their positions in Star Trek through their work. You know what I mean? So there's still meritocracy in the world of Star Trek as well. So, and then you see like a show like, shows like, Picard come out, and it just completely, I tried watching it, man. I tried, and I remember you advised me not to. For the record here, Matt told me, he's like, don't watch it. He's like, no, don't. Just don't. Do yourself a favor and don't. I was like, I don't know, Matt. Feeling kind of stupid today. I'm gonna do it. And I did it, and then I wish I hadn't.
It's funny. My buddy Jason, who's in the chat, he actually loves Star Trek Picard, and I don't think we've ever actually had like an in-depth discussion about it, because it's there are people that like it out there, but man, that was a tough watch.
Yeah, and it's fine if people do like it. I mean, for me, it's just like I guess, yeah, maybe it's an old school thing. It's just like when you see a show like Star Trek, there's this degree of almost like this. You look at it like there's a degree of decorum in Star Treks, right? There's a level of sophistication that they have in it, and then that kind of gets completely shattered when you hear people start dropping the F-bomb and talking like people at a Starbucks. You know what I mean?
Well, dude, it's completely contemporary writing. I mean, they're fucking vaping in space. In the 24th, 25th century, whatever century they're in by that point. All of these characters could be dudes that, if you just change the year to 2019, 2020, you'd be like, oh yeah, okay, yeah. But yeah, again, that was written with politics in mind. I don't know. Star Trek is about politics and stuff like that, but it's I'm sorry that I just keep on going, I don't know, but damn, that show sucked. It's funny too, because I've been watching a lot more of the like Next Gen through like Voyager and stuff like that, and it's just so interesting to see it so vastly different than the stuff that's coming out on CBS All Access. And you go and you like really look into that whole thing, and dude, it's a mess. The rights issues, like, that's all over the place. J.J. Abrams and Bad Robot and whatever other company like has their hands in that. Like, they completely just fucked up that franchise, like hardcore.
Yeah, and it's sad because it started with the remake movies, which the first remake movie I didn't have too big of a problem with. I was just like, okay, it's different. It's not great, but I was okay with it. And then, oh man, it was Into Darkness. I was like, oh god. I was like, oh my god. I'm just like, when that came out, I was just like, that's a wrap. It's dead. It's dead. It's all dead. Long live the king.
I didn't bother. Into Darkness and Beyond are the only two Trek movies I've never watched and never will.
Into Darkness it's a horrible movie, and Beyond I didn't even bother with, man, because I was just like, I was done with that. I was just like, all right, now we're done here. I was just, oh my goodness, man.
And don't get me wrong, some of the other Trek movies aren't so great. I would argue that maybe 1 through 6, have their place, but like the Next Gen movies, man, like I know this is heresy. I like them on like a nostalgic level. I don't particularly think they're great, Yeah. I mean, Generations, First Contact, and then Insurrection and Nemesis were just like, okay, So like, it definitely they have their problems, but I heard Into Darkness was just a mess.
Yeah, Into Darkness is a total mess, man. And the thing is, it's just everything that they tried to build up, and it's not the actors' fault. Obviously, they're given a script. They have to do. they have to do what they have to do. But the scene where Benedict Cumberbatch says that he's Khan.
Oh yeah,
it is so, bro. It is so laughably bad. It's just like the way they try to make it this thing that it's like a huge thing. He's like, I am my name is Khan, and it's just like, oh god, this is so bad, man. It's so bad. It just the way they try to build it up, and make you anticipate it. It's just, oh, man, you're just like you just don't care. You just don't get invested in any of it. And I was checked out right after that. I'm like, oh no, that happened. That really happened. I'm like, this movie really happened. Oh my lord. But
dude, it's bad. It's bad. JJ, I don't like that guy as a director. Like, I don't think there's been a single movie of his I've ever watched that I'm like, oh yeah, that was entertaining. And I know it's going to be like super duper controversial, but
I think the only movie of his that I ever liked was the first Star Trek movie. I think that's it. And even then, like I said, I like it for, it's one of those movies where I acknowledge that it's okay, it's good. I like it, for what it is, but it's not a great movie. But I like it, and that's probably it. That's probably the only one that I can really look at and say that's about it, because I can't think of anything else that he's ever done where I've been like, this is amazing.
I'm glad. I mean, I know this is not, I'm not trying to kill the conversation, but things like Trek and Star Wars and things of that nature. Like, I still am a huge fan of like both those franchises, but like in their current iterations, like I have zero interest, right? Yeah. But I'm still glad that we have like, 4 or 5 series worth of Star Trek, which typically have like 7 seasons each among them, all the previous movies, the original Star Wars trilogy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm glad those things still exist, and they're not trying to kind of maybe like do the Lucas thing where it's like you can't even find the originals anymore. They just keep on changing it. But it's, I really wish I could support like the current iterations of stuff. I feel like such an old man just being like, oh, back in my day,
Well, I think it goes with the saying, right? If it ain't broke, don't try to fix it. The reason why people like that stuff is because of how it is. I mean, I'm not saying that you can't add more current topical stuff into it, but the thing is, it's how you present it. And if you're beating people over the head with it and presenting it in a way that is just unappealing to people, they're gonna show you that it's not. I mean, look at. It's happening, and it's happening everywhere, man. Like we said, it's happening in comic books, it's happening in gaming. I mean, look, Mass Effect, a great AAA series, right, is dead now, completely dead after the last game, pretty much. I mean, that's
talking about Andromeda, right?
Yeah, Andromeda was just, it's horrible. I mean, and why? Because they decided to force feed, identitarianism into it and things of that nature, and woke stuff. And look, you don't need to do that to sell the game. I mean, look, I get that like anything else, people look at video games, it's an art form, it's a medium for people to express themselves. But I mean, there's ways to do it where, again, it could be, it could be thought provoking for people and make them think, huh. I mean, comic books is something that has done it over the years. Not every single thing has to be about it, but like, we look at X-Men. Yes, we're the X-Men a metaphor for racism, sure, absolutely, and Stan Lee said as much, but they weren't out there just battling that every day, right? I mean, when you look at some of the greatest stories in the X-Men lore, probably the best known one is the Dark Phoenix saga. That's not about any kind of politics. It's about a freaking alien force that is, that's taken over one of their comrades, and them ultimately making the choice of like, oh man, this alien force that's out of control within her. I mean, we might have to take her out for the sake of the universe. You know what I mean?
Totally.
So they're left with a decision they got to make. Like, oh man, we might have to off one of our own here. Our friend, our family here. For the greater good. So. You see that, and in Chris Claremont's writings, like the other stuff that he did, just all really, all the greatest stories. I think, there's some that have had things like that injected into them. When people talk about Watchmen, obviously, but with Watchmen, it's talking about what would happen in a, there's not just politics in there. There's philosophy in that too. There's, it's more than one thing going on there. And like I said, that's all stuff that, again, could be appealing to whoever reads it, but it's not something that necessarily, a guy like Alan Moore was beating people over the head with it. It's just kind of posing these ideals in this in this particular format, which is comic books. So
again, I struggle to add anything to the conversation that like to emphasize more of your points, but I completely agree with you about all of that. I feel like we live in like two different realities. I feel like a lot of this media that, and when I say media, I'm talking about like movies, comic books, video games, whatever, you know. I feel like they're catering to a niche audience that exists strictly online and doesn't really exist in reality. You know what I mean? Because it's like, I can't even tell you. I mean, we can go politics, we can go whatever. I mean, there's been so many instances where it's like, oh my God, it's so popular online. And then they try to, you know, they try to move that into the public sphere, you know, to everyone, and it just flops, or it doesn't pick up steam, you know. First movie that comes to mind that's kind of older, I mean, Scott Pilgrim, like that movie had a tremendous online backing, like go see this movie, and then it flopped in theaters. Not to say that it's a bad movie or anything, but it didn't translate into that, you know. Not to bring up politics, but Bernie Sanders, right? You know, it looked like everybody was like, oh my God, you know, feel the burn. And then what ends up happening?
Yeah, no, exactly.
And I kind of feel like it's like, you know, you're being told this is a thing, this is like really popular. And then when it comes out, it's like, oh, it's only popular with a small group of possibly loud voices, you know?
Yeah. And that's the interesting thing about it, right? It's like such an interesting phenomenon that such a vocal minority of people online have so much influence over the things that end up getting, you know, made. You know, the choices that end up getting made with you know, these mediums, whether it be video games, comic books, or the like. It's crazy, man.
I would actually, a couple of things about that. And again, questions more so than like criticisms or things of this nature. But like, I would really like to kind of like have a non-confrontational discussion, almost like in a documentary-esque form about, let's say the things that we're talking about. You know, obviously there are people that like it, you know, or people that like it. What is it about that they like? Is it because of the identity politics? You know, like, do identity politics actually do sell to people? Because like, I'm really curious about that, because if they do, then it's like, how many of them really are there? You know, because obviously it keeps happening.
Yeah.
And typically, you know, how it's met is, you know, where you have the people that agree with it, the people that disagree with it, and then that's it. You know what I mean? But like, I'm genuinely interested to know about the people, not necessarily the writers, but like the consumers of said product. Like, what draws them in about that? You know, is that really why they watch it? Do they watch something like Ghostbusters 2016, not necessarily because they're Ghostbusters fans, but because of the fact that it's just an all women group, you know? So,
yeah.
Sorry. Anyways.
Exactly. No. I heard you saying it. No, the reason I put this up is because I think this kind of, you know, encapsulates a little bit what we're discussing here. You know, best cringe moment, getting Ninja, the gaming streamer, to do the New Year's countdown in Times Square. The audience did not give two craps about who he was. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. And it's just, you know, I think that part of the issue might be is that maybe the mainstream media pays too much attention to what happens online, thinking that that's a majority when it's not. You know, they have a misconception, I think, about people online, because, you know, I forgot what, I wish I could find it now, man. I'd probably have to look it up, but I found something interesting that's I think I discussed to you about it in private, where they did like, I think some kind of poll like on Twitter, where only like, I think it was only 10% of the user base on Twitter makes up 80% of the tweets that go out on the platform.
That's right.
Which is insane to think about, right? That only like 10% of the people on there make up that much of the content that's going out. That's crazy. But it kind of makes sense though, because there's people that are doing nothing but all day being on social media, you know, talking about stuff constantly. And I think that's part of what is leading to stuff like this happening, because I think they see that and they think, oh, well, then majority of people must think this way or must want this, you know?
Totally. It's so weird, man. It is such an interesting time that we live in. You know what I mean? With that kind of stuff. It's going to bring up a book I'm reading right now that would take this into a completely different direction. But there was just hearing how like things like Twitter and social media, how they affect people's lives. You know what I mean? It's really fascinating stuff. But anyways, I'm done babbling. I feel like I'm just like the entire time. So I apologize, John. I'll get you on my stream and I'll make it worth your while.
No, we're good. We're good, man. No, I appreciate you being on. Okay, so yeah, this was, hold on. Actually, let me see. This was actually in a Forbes article. Hold on, and this was last year. This was actually a year ago. Let me go over this real quick. Let me see. Let's see. Let me see if I can bring it up here. Let's see. Hold on.
Are you doing the share screen thing?
I can if you'd like. If you like, I can.
Oh no, you don't have to. I just didn't know that's what you're doing.
You see, yeah, no, I'll bring it up so people people will see that it's real. It happened. Hold on.
Where's your proof?
Yeah, show me the receipts.
Yeah.
So, let's see. All right. No, okay, so all right, hold on. Let me.
Sorry,
this is not working with me here. I mean, there's a couple different news sites that shared this article. Actually, now that I'm looking at it, even Pew Research apparently showed it. All right, I'll just go to this Slashdot article because it's more or less the same thing. But yeah, anybody could look this up. Like I said, it's like a legit thing. It's not fake news. Let's see. Share screen here real quick so y'all can see. But check this out. Yeah. In America, 10% of Twitter users create 80% of its tweets, according to a new study by Pew Research Center. Look at that, man. Check this out. The median user in the top 10% by tweet volume creates 138 tweets per month. Favorites 70 posts per month. Follows 456 accounts and has 387 followers. By comparison, the median user in the bottom 90% of tweets creates just 2 tweets per month. Favorites 1 post per month. Follows 74 accounts and has 19 followers. That's crazy, man. That's crazy that people spend that much time online. You know, because majority of the time, I'm sorry, man, but majority of the time, the stuff that's being tweeted on Twitter, I mean, it's great for conversation sometimes, but come on, man, that's just
right.
a lot of times it's a lot of time wasting. In my opinion, I might be wrong.
No, I don't. But you're not going to get any argument out of me. It's a much like all other social media. It's a nice place to be able to promote things, stay connected with certain people. But I would say that's probably about the extent of it. I don't really see much else used for it. You know, there's probably way more cons than there are pros with it. But yeah, Twitter is an interesting place to say the least.
Yeah. And it's not real life.
No, it's not. And that's the interesting too. Is like I feel like that's one of the problems that we haven't really grappled with as a society. And you know, there's another question I wanted to ask earlier. Is like, you know, we're talking about this whole woke culture, I guess, with certain mediums, right? Is that strictly an American thing, or has that permeated other cultures and stuff within also the same mediums, like in their entertainment? Like, is that a thing, or is this strictly like, I know apparently Doctor Who started doing it or something.
Yeah. I think
so that answers the question, but like, I would also argue that Doctor Who's more of like an international kind of thing, because it feels like more people also consume that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's because it's in Western cultures. I think more than anything else. Like, it's pervaded those things. I know in Spain, you know, it's one of the countries that's been hit hard with the woke stuff. So European countries, UK, obviously, you know, Canada is one that has a lot of woke stuff even in their politics. I mean, think about some of the things in Canada that people can get arrested for. I mean, bro, you could face a tribunal for telling, you know, jokes that are not politically correct, right? I mean, so humor is not something that is, you know, they don't there's these countries that obviously talk about being you know, they're for free speech, but they're really not. They're not. It's still, it's not like America. It's stuff that you can honestly get in trouble for. You know, I mean, even, you know, in some parts of the UK, and even, I mean, look, need to look no further than Count Dankula, right? The guy who, to troll his girlfriend, to mess with his girlfriend, taught his little pug to do the, you know, the Heil thing, right? You know what I mean? Which, when you think about it in the grander scheme of things, it's not a big deal. But he actually got in trouble for that. You know what I mean? In his country, you know, that's ridiculous. It's like, it's a joke. You know what I mean? It's like, seriously, you know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah.
You're gonna bring the law down on that guy because he did a joke to troll his girlfriend? It's like, seriously, you know.
There's a documentary on Amazon Prime that you can watch for free called I think it's "Can We Take a Joke?" or "Can You Take a Joke?" And it's a documentary about, definitely has some bias against it, just in the presentation, but it's about stand-up comedians in America. It's older. It's like 2010. So if you remember back then, there was a lot of this at the time. A lot of comedians couldn't go on college campuses without, you know, being called out and all this stuff. But they dive into that, and then later, like as it progresses, it gets from a micro to a macro, and it goes to like the world stage and stuff like that, about, you know, free speech and things of that nature. Really fascinating stuff. And they talk about like the political drawings, you know, that you know, got, I think, I'm sorry, I'm going to sound like a complete idiotic American here, but like, was it Denmark that did some kind of Buddha, good God, I'm just going to stop talking right now. They did some political drawings that pissed off, you know, a religious sect, and there was murder and bombings and that kind of crap. It's an interesting documentary, you know, and it's a very interesting discussion to have, because like I said, you know, we've gone from talking about freaking Tokusatsu and stuff, but then it just, again, it's what I was saying at the beginning, though. It's a thing that permeates, you know, every aspect of our culture, really. And I wish that there was more to it than just outside of just being like, wow, you know, what can you do, you know? But it just seems like so just overwhelming, you know, at times, really.
Yeah, that's where we're at in current year. It's unfortunate, and again, you know, I mean, I like to. That's why, like, I mean, and getting back to, I guess we could kind of come full circle here and get back to, you know, the Tokusatsu stuff. I mean, you know, when we look at the content we create, I mean, I create the content for fun and to be informative about stuff that people just might like, right? Just like I'm sure you do too. I mean, I like the flow of information. I like, if I could learn something along the way and also be entertained, that's great. That's a great you know, marriage of stuff right there. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Especially learning the history of certain things. And if people want to have, you know, mention things that parallel that stuff, like that happen around that time frame, you know, I like history too, just in general. So I don't mind learning about that stuff. That's why I think that, again, and we'll start closing it out with this, but why, like, a video of yours is important for people to hear and really get the message behind it. You know, that it's not about, hey, you can't do this because you don't know more than I do, or anything like that, or because, you know, if their takeaway from it was that, or that, oh, you know, this guy's just jealous, it's like you're missing the point of the video. You know what I mean? It's just like, in order, if you ever want this this thing that we all enjoy to be taken a little bit more seriously, then you got to take it more seriously. You got to learn stuff. You know what I mean? Especially if you're going to be put in a position where you're expected to present it a little bit more seriously. Not that I'm saying that it has to be completely serious when you present it. You could have a little fun with it, but
Totally.
you know, you're doing yourself a disservice, and you're doing your audience a disservice to a degree by not learning as much as you possibly can about it and presenting it the way that people would expect, I guess, to present it. Because I mean, you know, people, they catch on, and there's people that take. If you've seen it with your videos and mine. That I know there's people that always, you know, there's people that take it way more serious than we do. They don't even necessarily create content. That's how much it means to them.
Totally. You know, yeah. I don't know what else I can really add to that. I really hope. I mean, if we're going back to the Tokusatsu thing real quick, you know, I really hope that a little bit more care is taken into this stuff in the future, especially given from companies that have a history of formally giving stuff like that care, you know, because I really don't think a YouTube generation of people who basically their only form of knowledge is their opinion, which is the lowest form of knowledge. Like that should not be what fuels, you know, years of knowledge to come, I guess. Does that make any sense?
No, it makes sense to me. Yeah, because that's a very low bar to set.
Oh yeah, you know.
Yeah.
If you can't even watch, yeah. It's so stupid.
And with that,
yeah, dude, I'm sorry.
We'll go ahead. We'll go ahead and wrap it up here. But for those of you that get a chance, you know, Matt, plug your stuff. You know, subscribe to his channel.
No, don't subscribe. We're awful. We're awful. We're terribly inconsistent. That much is true. But over on Monstrosities Tokusatsu vlog, trying to get more videos up. We've been doing a lot of live streams lately. In fact, we're probably going to end up doing one this weekend. And it's usually just a pretty fun time. It's really easy, really chill. We got a nice little community of people, not just like on the channel itself, but we also have a Discord. It's really just a lot of fun. You know, we typically are more kaiju based than we are other tokusatsu, but you know, we got people on there who love Ultraman, you know, the Gridman stuff, you know, Power Rangers, Kamen Rider does come up more, Sentai, stuff like that. And, you know, would love to see you, you know, would always love to interact. And yeah, that's all I got.
Boom shakalaka. And everybody knows how to reach me, of course, if you're here on the channel. And for those of you that are new in the chat, if you want to subscribe, I kind of cover things along the same lines, you know, not as much kaiju as Matt, but from time to time I will talk about stuff like that and just whatever else is topical within kind of the geek world here. And I do like to stream fairly consistently, but not super consistent, not every day. But yeah, if you guys want to check out the other stuff I got, please feel free. You know, I like to do kind of more the documentary style format of stuff too when I put out like bigger projects. So if you want to check that out, please.
You got some stuff in the pipeline that I cannot wait to see.
Yes, and there's some. Yeah, I got some stuff coming down. Hopefully, once I get everything in place, will be a lot of fun and hopefully to some degree groundbreaking. But we'll leave it at that. Appreciate you being on, buddy.
It's quite the teaser to leave everybody on.
Yeah, that's what you got to do. You got to leave them wanting more. Got to leave them wanting
right.
More. But we'll go ahead and wrap it with that. I appreciate you all joining us tonight here in the chat. You know, hanging out with us for a bit and just talking. We went to a lot of different places here.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we got to do it again sometime, man. But we'll wrap it up here. You all have a good night. Thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you all on the next stream.
Laters.